Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Diane Deziel and today I'm doing a special request. I'll show you how to do the pattern for this cute top or dress, sleeveless. And as you could see, there's a V-neck in the front and also an underarm piece. Now I show you the back. So you could see that the yoke is much higher and also you have a little opening with a loop button. Now to do this pattern, I retrace my back block and I even cut it for the front. We're also going to retrace it, but this time I want you to pivot the shoulder dart and add it to the waist dart. You're going to trace from center front to the notch and then from the center front to the notch. Hold your pivot, close your shoulder dart, then trace from the notch all the way to the notch of the waist dart. What you could also see is that I also indicate the original notch of the waist dart. I'll keep it as a reference to find out how much was the shoulder dart at the waist level. And now I will cut all around my front. Now the next thing to do will be to trace this tie line, and I'm going to start with the neckline that is a little modified, if you remember from the picture that I showed you at the beginning. So I think the neck is enlarged by about 2 centimeters and the neckline at the center front is dropped about 8 centimeters. Next thing I will do is just trace my neckline with a soft curve going down. The reason why I'm curving a little bit down is to make sure that my line is going to look straight when I wear the garment. Now when your front style is done, you're going to put your shoulder of the back next to the front shoulder. You're going to continue your neckline starting at the shoulder point. And the correction to do is to square your line from center back for about 3 centimeters. The measurement I get here is about 1 centimeter. The next thing I will do is to trace my yoke in the front that is also in V. And according to my eyes, it's about 7.5 centimeter wide. So I'm going to measure my 7.5 all the way parallel to my neckline. Then using your curve again, we're going to do a very light curve. Then you place your shoulder right next to your front and you're going to measure your 7.5 parallel to the neck at the back. Now since I'm doing a sleeveless dress, I'm not going to bother with the dart right now because my yoke is going to be in one piece and this part of the shoulder doesn't exist anymore. The next thing to do will be to trace the new armhole starting at the bottom of my yoke in the front and going all the way to my original underarm point. Now also according to my estimation, this little yoke is about 4 centimeters wide parallel to my new armhole. Now that the front is done, we're going to do the same thing on the back. So first we'll trace the new armhole line and then we'll trace 4 centimeters parallel to connect with the front one. We're going to place notches for assembling. I'm going to put a double notch in the back armhole to assemble the yoke with the bodice and a single one in the front. We're going to need some more notch, but this time on the yoke part, I want you to put a notch for the beginning and the end of the armhole yoke. And this is for back and front. Now that all the style lines are done, remove the neck part that we have extra and also the armhole that we have extra on both back and front. We're now ready to start tracing out the pattern piece with the neck yoke. Place your front on another paper and trace all around your front yoke using the tracing wheel for the inside line. Then take your back pattern and place it shoulder with shoulder and trace the back part of the yoke. Also use the tracing wheel for the inside line and make sure you indicate both the beginning and the end of the underarm piece for the back and the front. Now we could put the seam allowance, but before I'm going to put my fold of the fabric at the center front. So I know I don't need seam allowance over here. The rest of it, 1 centimeter all around. Now we could do the notch, and I'm gonna add one for you at the neckline, exactly at the shoulder level. Then you have your 4 notch to assemble with the underarm piece. The grain line for that piece is going to be parallel to the center front, and it's going to be cut 2 times. Now we're ready for the second pattern piece, the underarm piece. But since I already sewed the sample, I'm going to ask you to do a little correction that I saw to improve the fit, and it's to do a little closure at pretty much the first third from the underarm seam. Do a little closure of about 3 millimeters on each side. We're going to do it right away so your pattern will be perfect. To do the little closure, you're going to trace a line pretty much at the 1/3 of the armhole. You trace a line and you do that on both sides. Measure about 3 millimeters on one side or the other, doesn't matter, it's only to do a little closure to the pattern piece. So 3 millimeters back and front. Now on another piece of paper, you're going to trace the top part of the back bodice underarm piece. So I'm tracing the top part until the little line, and also the inside line with my tracing wheel, the yoke area. At this point, hold your pivot, that is going to be the bottom of the line, with the inside line. So you hold it there, then you close your 3 millimeters. You'll be able to trace from this line to the bottom of the yoke, and then the inside line, and also the 2 notches. Now we're ready to continue with the front. So place your front side seam right next to the back side seam, and trace the first part from underarm to the 3 millimeter mark, and with your tracing wheel you trace the inside line and indicate the notch. Now we're ready to do the little closure. So hold the pivot just at the bottom of the line, intersection of the inside line. Close the 3 millimeter, and you're ready to trace the top part of the front with your tracing wheel, the yoke area, and the inside line. The piece is complete. We could now put the seam allowance and cut it all around. Now for this piece, we already have the double notch for the back and the single notch in the front. I'm going to also add an extra notch exactly at the side seam on the upper line, and your grain line is exactly on the side seam, and the piece is cut 4 times. We're now ready to do the pattern of the 2 main pieces, so the bottom front and the bottom back. To do that, you're going to just remove the 2 pieces that are already done for the front and the back. Now let's start with the front piece. The first thing we'll do is trace 2 additional lines. They're not going to be style line, it's just for you to be able to add your flair. So I'm going to do one at the center front area and one at the side seam area. So I'm going to give you measurement right now to do your opening, but it's really a matter of style. The important is just that you put the same flair on both back and front. I'm going to start with the center front area, and I'm going to trace from the first line all the way to the bottom part, first line. The value for my flair is going to be 5 centimeters for my openings. So I'm going to take my ruler that is 5 centimeters wide next to my first line and just do a little reference. Then what you do is you hold your pattern at the pivot point. So I'm at the neck level, and I'm going to pivot my pattern until I reach my 5 centimeter opening. At this point, you could trace from this first mark all the way to the second opening on the side of the piece. Same thing on top, and don't forget to indicate the armhole notch that's matching the underarm piece. Now we are ready to do the second opening, so the side seam opening. I take my ruler again and put it right next to the line. I'm going to indicate the 5 centimeter. Then you hold the top part and we're going to pivot until this opening. Then we could trace from that second line at the bottom all the way to the second line at the armhole. We're now going to do the last flare or half a flare on the side seam, but before doing it I want you to do a square line from the waist touching the underarm point. Then since the flare were 5 centimeter, I said that at the side seam we're going to do half a flare, so I want you to add a 2.5 centimeter flare all the way to the underarm point. It's now time to determine the length of this top or dress. So remember that this is the waist level. So right now I'm going to do an elongated bodice. So I'm adding a 21 centimeter. I will reach the hip level. But if you want to do a dress, you just add more. For example, from the waist to the knee, it's 60 centimeter. So elongate your bodice and put the measurement at a few area. It's going to help you to do your line. You start tracing the bottom with a square from center front for a few centimeters, and then you just trace. Now you could put your seam allowance all around except for the center front that is going to be on fold, and for the hem a maximum of 1.5 centimeters because we have a curved line. Once your front is finished, we could do the back piece, and we're going to do it the same way. So just trace a line on the center front area and another one at the side seam area. For the back, we'll do exactly what we did for the front. So we trace from the top line to the bottom line. Then you're going to measure a 5 centimeter and just do a little reference. Then we could hold the pivot at the neck point and just open until the 5 centimeter reference point that we have. Now in the back, we're going to have an extra opening or flare to compensate from the shoulder dart that we transfer at the waist in the front. For this one, you're going to measure the shoulder dart amount over here. I got about 4.5, so I report the measurement, and as you could see, I just trace square from the bottom, touching the pivot of the waist dart towards the top. Now I have my next pivot point. I could pivot from that point all the way to my 4.5. Next step will be to trace from that 4.5 all the way to the next opening. Same thing on top. Now I'm ready to do the next opening or the next flare at the last line that I traced. So my ruler is 5 centimeter. I just trace to get a little reference. Then I could hold my pivot at the armhole and just pivot my block. Now I could trace the last part of my bodice. Don't forget to indicate your armhole notch that's going to match with the underarm piece. Now for the side seam, we'll do the same that we did in the front. Square with the waist, touching the underarm point. Then you're going to add your 2.5 flare. Then you could just retrace. Again, just like we did in the front, for this one I'm going to add 21 centimeters so I reach the hip level. We're also going to start with a 90-degree for a few centimeters, then trace the bottom of the pattern. Now this pattern piece could be cut on fold on the center back. You could put the seam allowance 1 centimeter all around, except for this one, and my hem I put 1.5 centimeter. Your pattern is now finished, so I have my back, I have my front, my underarm piece, and my neck yoke. That's it for today. I hope you enjoy. Make sure you watch my next video. I'm going to show you how to assemble this cute little top or dress. Thanks for watching, and I see you next time.